Janamejaya said, while living thus disguised in the seat of the Matisias, what did those descendants of the Kuru haste and that with great prowess do? Vaisampayana said, hear what those descendants of Kuru did while they dwelt thus in disguise in the seat of the Matisias, worshipping the king thereof. But the grace of the sage Trinavindu and of the high-souled Lord of Justice, the Pandavas continued to live unrecognized by others in the seat of Virata. Yudhishthira, as courtiers, made himself agreeably to Virata and his sons, as also to all the Matisias, an adept in the mysteries of the dice. The son of Pandu caused them to play at dice according to his pleasure, and made them sit together in the dice hall like a whole of birds bound in a string. And that tiger among men, King Yudhishthira, the just, unknown to the monarch, distributed among his brothers in due proportion the wealth he won from Virata. And Bhishmasena on his part sold to Yudhishthira for price meat and viands of various kinds, which he obtained from the king. And Arjuna distributed among all his brothers the proceeds of worn out clothes which he earned in the inner apartments of the palace. And Sahadeva, too, who was disguised as a cowherd, gave milk and curds and clarified butter to his brothers. And Nakula shared with his brothers the wealth the king gave him, satisfied with his management of the horses. And Draupadi, herself in a pitiable condition, looked after all those brothers and behaved in such a way as to remain unrecognized, and thus ministering unto one another once. Those mighty warriors lived in the capital of Virata as hidden from view, as if they were once more in their mother womb. And those laws of men, the sons of Pandu, apprehensively of danger from the son of Dhritarashtra, continued to dwell there in concealment, watching over their wife Draupadi. And after 3 months had passed away, in the 4th, the grand festival in honor of the divine Brahma, which was celebrated with pomp in the country of the Matisias, came off. And there came athletes from all quarters by thousands, like hosts of celestials, to the abode of Brahma or of Shiva, to witness that festival. And there were endowed with hook bodies and great prowess, like the demons called Kalakihanjas, and elated with their prowess, and proud of their strength. They were highly honored by the king, and their shoulders and waists and necks were like those of lions, and their bodies were very clean, and their hearts were quite at ease. And they had many a time won success in the lists in the presence of kings. And amongst them there was one who towered above the rest, and challenged them all to a combat. And there was none that dared approach him as he proudly stalked in the arena. And when all the athletes stood sad and dispirited, the king of the Matisias made him fight with his cock. And urged by the king, Bhishma made up his mind reluctantly, for he could not openly disobey the royal behest. And that tiger among men, then having worshipped the king, entered the spacious arena, passing with the careless steps of a tiger. And the son of Kunti then girded up his loins to the great delight of the spectators. And Bhishma then summoned to the combat that athlete known by the name of Jimuta, who was like unto the Asura Vritra, whose prowess was wildly known. and both of them were possessed of great courage, and both were endowed with terrible prowess, and they were like a couple of infuriated and hog-bodied elephants, each 60 years old. And those brave tigers among men then cheerfully engaged in a wrestling combat, desirous of vanquishing each other, and terribly was the encounter that took place between them, like the clash of the thunderbolt against the stone mountain breast. And both of them were exceedingly powerful and extremely delighted at each other's strength, and desirous of vanquishing each other. Each stood eager to take advantage of his adversary's lapse, and both were greatly delighted, and both looked like infuriated elephants of prodigious size. And various were the modes of attack and defense that they exhibited with their clenched fists, and each dashed against the other, and flung his adversary to a distance, and each cast the other down, and pressed him close to the ground, and each got up again and squeezed the other in his arms, and each threw the other violently off his place by boxing him on the breast, and each caught the other by the legs, and whirling him round threw him down on the ground, and they slapped each other with their palms that struck as hard as the thunderbolt, and they struck each other with their outstretched fingers, and stretching them out like spears, thrust the nails into each other's body, and they gave each other violent kicks, and they struck knee and head against head, producing the crash of one stone against another, and in this manner that furious combat between those warriors raged on without weapons, sustained mainly by the power of their arms and their physical and mental energy, to the infinite delight of the concourse of spectators. And our people took deep interest in that encounter of those powerful wrestlers who fought like Indra and the Asura Virata, and they shared both of them with loud acclamations of applause, and the broad-chested and long-armed experts in wrestling then pulled and pressed and wiggled and hurled down each other and struck each other with their knees, expressing all the while their scorn for each other in loud voices, and they began to fight with their bare arms in this way, which were like spiked masses of iron. And at last the powerful and might-armed Bhima, the slayer of his foes, shouting aloud-sized the vociferous athlete by the arms, even as the lion seized the elephant, and taking him up from the ground, and holding him aloft, began to whirl him round, to the great astonishment of the assembled athletes and the people of Matisa. And having whirled him round and round 100 times till he was insensibly, the strong-armed Vrikodara dashed him to death on the ground. And when the brave and renowned Jimuta was thus killed, Virata and his friends were filled with great delight, and in the exuberance of his joy, the noble-minded king rewarded Palava then and there with the liberality of Kuvera, and killing numerous athletes and many other men possessed of great bodily strength, he pleased the king very much. And when no one could be found there to encounter him in the lists, the king made him fight with tigers and lions and elephants. And the king made him battle with furious and powerful lions in the harem for the pleasure of the ladies. And Arjuna pleased the king and all the ladies of the inner apartments by singing and dancing, and Nakula pleased Virata, that best of kings, by showing him fleet and well-trained steeds that followed him wherever he went. And the king, gratified with him, he was dead, him with ample presents. And beholding around Sahadeva a herd of well-trained bullocks, Virata, that bull among men, bestowed upon him wealth of the best kinds. And Draupadi, distressed to see all those warriors suffer pain, sighed incessantly, and it was in this way that those eminent persons lived there in disguise, rendering service unto King Virata.